Yesterday we talked about software development life cycle. To yeah, yesterday means whenever we last time were. So today we will go a little bit deep dive in that, and we will going to discuss the methodologies of software development life cycle. What in tradition right now everybody is using. So we will going to go with there are main two part of software development life cycle methodologies. One is traditional methodology, and one is iterative. Do you familiar word with iterative? Do you know what does it mean? No, we are not talking right now with agile. What is iterative methodology means, right? It is to going in a circular motion and doing repeating the same kind of stuff again and again and working throughout. Yes, correct. So let's talk about traditional model. So traditional model is a linear sequential life cycle framework like waterfall. So traditional come, under the traditional waterfall comes under it. In sequential model, each phase must be completed in its entirety before the next phase can begin. So whenever we are talking about designing phase, so designing has to 100 percentage complete, then and there it will go to development phase. Development phase 100 percentage complete, then and then it will go to the QA phase, so testing phase. So because of that, there is a lot of time where you are spending too much time on some certain stuff. So that is because of that, right now it is very rare somebody is using waterfall methodology. The linear structure of this model makes it simple, understand and use, easy to manage due to its rigidity, where each phase has specific deliverables and a review. So I'm saying that this is nowadays people are less prefer to do use the waterfall model, but I'm not saying that it is not using. It is not using at all. It is still in use. In some of the development, people are using waterfall model. So because of simplification or simplified version, rather than if we talk about iterative mode with agile and rational methodology, that is very very overcomplicated if we talk about, and you required a lot of people to do so. So it's better when you have a smaller project and you are working on some similar, very simple kind of stuff. Waterfall is the way to. Let's talk about iterative mode. So iterative mode does contain Scrum methodology, and it also contains rational unified process. We call it RUP, and with iterative approach, it is also known as a incremental or progressive life cycle. So you work on something, you will make some progress, you will log your progress, then you move forward, little bit, and then you will create a huge thing. In this model, multiple development life cycle take place, making the time. Next phase can begin and review taken place, and the end of the phase to determine in the project is the right path or not. So whenever you do any kind of iterative thing, you will check for each of the cycle, each of iteration. You will going to get a review of the iteration, what you have worked on, and after completing each iteration, you will have a direction from the team member and the stakeholders for that particular iteration, and understand whether you are going on the right direction or a wrong direction. Life cycle take place making the model multi waterfall where cycle are divided into smaller, more easily managed iteration. Each phase through full life cycle. So when the one loop is completed, you will going to repeat the same procedure, gathering all the requirement, all the stuff, what we were going to do, grooming, then after development, designing, it's necessary. So it is very, very agile, which is very, very super fast, but very effective for the uh, larger development. The iterative framework generate, I beg your pardon? Like big projects. Generates the functioning software quickly during each stages of life cycle. Also, it's more flexible change in scope or requirement, easier to test debug since it has a iteration. So the scope of the project can be make, you can make it change rapidly. It didn't require a lot of things to make any changes whatever you are developing or what will going to develop more. The team can be more flexible to work with rather than whatever the plan you have decided and carry forward with those stuff. So nowadays agile methodology is used in every aspect of the business, not just only software development, but all of the projects in any industry. And this is kind of fascinated, but some doctor invented this. Yeah, medical doctor, medicine doctor. No, but the all the component might be changed. All the component might be changed, but it will follow the same pattern. So let's talk about little bit on the waterfall model. As you can see over here, it's a waterfall. Hmm. Yes. Initiation would be same, requirement is also same. Designing might be there, design might be not there. Development, it's not the software development, something else development. If you are working with some electronics or something, testing is also there. Deployment, it's going to deployments, release in the market. So agile, with iteration, it will follow the same pattern. But in waterfall, the entire project we will going to talk about. In iterative environment, we talk about small things. Suppose we are developing a Model 3 project, right? So let's talk about the software. And inside the software, let's talk about small things. Team is working on this sprint for air conditioning and heating screen and functionality. It will be focused on that stuff. The next sprint it will be focused on something else, but it will be iterative and follow the same pattern as well. Because unless and until you finish some requirement, some functionality, you are not able to, unless and until you develop, you are not able to test it as well, right? But you can break down your task into small chunks rather than think about I want to climb Mount Everest. You will going to only think about I want to go first checkpoint, I will go want to go second checkpoint, right? That is a mindset. So if the cumulative work, it will grow really, really huge. So let's talk about waterfall methodology. Waterfall is a sequential software development methodology in which activities or phases are seen to falling steadily from top to bottom. And that's why it's called waterfall, right? If you see step waterfall, just like a fall, water is coming here, right? Unless and until initialization complete, you cannot start requirement. Requirement is complete, then and then you can start on designing. Design is complete, develop. So that is a basic idea behind that. And there is a feedback path as well. There is a feedback path as well for each of the things as well. Wherever they are doing any developing something, at the end of the phase, you will have review and you will have the feedback of all. The waterfall is traditionally software development approach. Assume phases and project can be complicated, sequential, which means one phase led to the next phase. It is linear model, can only go in one direction, so it cannot be circular. It only go in one direction. When a phase is performed, it is frozen and signed off strict order. This makes it simple and easy explain to user to team members. So once the phase is complete, it is everybody, all the stakeholders will sign and do all the things. Nobody will going to change any requirement once your phase is complete of requirement. Once your design phase is complete, that is the design. Nobody will going to change. So it is not kind of a very rigid kind of environment. So it is not ideal for a huge, development because with bigger project, market is very dynamic right now. Everything is changing. You never know what it comes next tomorrow, right? Who is working on what, right? So you have to be very, very kind of a fluid in terms of your requirement and what you want to develop as a product wise. The linear structure of activity has some important consequences. In order to clearly identify end-to-end phase beginning to the other certification, formal sign-off is needed and end of each phase. So whenever any phase will going to complete, any kind of formally, stakeholder sign-off is needed, and everybody has to recognize that whatever we have discussed, everybody agreed on. This means that each phase must be predefined. It has to be crystal clear, see through of that particular phase as well, 0 to 100%. Output that can be evaluated and certified based on the whatever they have decided on the 100%. Then they will going to evaluate and certify the output. This certified output is called the baseline and can be changed or modified in controlled manner. So it can be modified in a very controlled manner if it is needed, if it is necessary. But it will going to affect the scope of the project. In a waterfall model, if the scope of the project has been changed, there is a lot of thing has been changed associated with the budget to the resources with everything. Baseline output will become input in the next phase. Whatever the output of the phase, it would be input of the next phase. A certification mechanism has to be employed at the end of each phase. Depending on the organization you are working for, sign off could be acquired via email, physical signature, electronic, SharePoint, etc. And this is a very slow process for that. Everybody agree, everybody not agree, and it will take a lot of time, effort, and everything. Rather, people are wasting their time in a lot of meetings talking with each other rather than go jump and working on something and finish it up. Let's talk about limitation of a linear model or waterfall model. It assumes that requirement of the system can be frozen before design begin, which can be possible the system design to upgrade an existing system, but for absolutely new system determined requirement is difficult as a user themselves do not know what they want. Therefore, user need to be absolutely know what they want, because their methodology is not flexible for changes. So the entire linear methodology is not flexible, it is rigid, and sometimes you don't know what user want, right? They are developing something. Even a huge company like Apple, they are developing something. They don't know that whatever the user want. They nowadays we have all the system and feedback path and everything, so they can determine what user want. But even though you never know, your product might be failure or something, right? So because of that, it has to be very risky and very rigid process. You can That's why in a lot of cases, we whenever any new product is coming, they have some kind of seen through before it's coming. There is a leak of design, there's a leak of software or something, so everybody can understand what's going on, right? The greatest and biggest example right now is Cyberpunk 2072 or something, right? So people are waiting for 4 years, 5 years for the game, and they showed a real good demo. But when they have a real product, it full of bug and full of unexpected result of the things. So that's why it's getting failed, I would say. Still, they are able to manage the business, able to do the business, but still, whatever the hype they have built in the market, they are not able to make that promise, right? Also, freezing requirement usually requires choosing the hardware. So large project will face the problem that they have employ technology their roles. That means resources are not utilized to their fullest potential in the waterfall model. So sometimes what happen, QA will going to wait for their turn. It will going to take like 6 months or 8 months to complete from the development, and QA is not doing anything, right? So this is not ideal. This is not good. So these are the limitations of linear methodology or waterfall. Right, right. Every meeting. So in the initial phase, whenever everything will be whatever the initial meeting you will going to do a session or something. Then after there will be meeting, whatever the document is prepared, everybody review and agreed upon. After that, the requirement gather, and there is a feedback as well. Design. After the design, you will going to do a demo. Everybody talk about, and everybody discuss that. Yes, we are agreed on this. No, we are not agreed on this. So at that level, that particular level, unless and until get approved by all stakeholders, it will no don't go into the next phase. So let's talk about iterative now. So RUP, Rational Unified Process, is a iterative software development approach that provide the discipline process to assign task and responsibility within the quality software that meets the need of the end user within an estimated schedule and budget by implementing the project management structure to software development lifecycle. That the phases of iterations, each having its templates and guidelines. So we talked about what is iteration, right? How we will going to iterate some phases. So just like we have defined, I have defined the phases of our training document, right? Be a training roadmap. So in that, over there, study point and the week over there are some week are overlapping with each other. So Similarly, in that uh, Excel sheet, whatever I have represent, the RUP is also similar. So what does it mean? That you are working on analysis and design, right? So there is a phase, and on each column it provided a breakdown all the phases. And when you are designing, the development team started working on whatever the proof concept is ready for the designing. They will going to start working on all the phases, not parallelly, but somewhere in the future, after some certain phases of design completed, they will going to start working. And certain phases of development completed, and QA team will going to testing with tester will going to start working on side by side on some certain phases, right? So it will, right. Um, can you open that BA? Are you able to see? So over here we have 5 weeks, right? So in 5 weeks, there are agile is only 1 week that I show only 1 week. After that, there are 5 weeks of any other study book and everything. Book and everything is there, but if you go and see the light green marketing phase, it will going to start from week number 5, and it will go till the end, week number 8, right? So similarly, whenever week 1, week 2, week 3 is the phases. So suppose let's take an example of uh, something like the first column over here, 11th number is our designing phase, 12 number is our development phase, development, entire development, and week 1, week 2 are the breakdown phases of designing, and also it will going to represent the phases of development and testing and everything. So there is a common thing. So you will going to start working on designing week 1, week 2, then you can parallelly start over here with on week 2 you can start developing whatever the week 1 development is available, design available. Yes, we cannot say everything will going to start parallelly, but once one process has started, in a few time the second process or second phase will going to start as per the schedule. Hmm. Hmm. So in this model, nobody will going to sit idle, right? If we see the earlier, unless and until the entire design will be concluded, development cannot be started. So it is not like that. Designing is also working, developer is also working, and by the week third, tester is also working, whatever they have delivered, right? So everybody will going to engage, and it is repeating its own cycle every time, right? So it has a four phases of designing, developing, and uh, we can break it down into four things. First is inception. The second is elaboration. The third is construction. The fourth is transition. Right. So inception means understanding what to build. The beginning. Elaboration, understanding how to build. The third phase would be actual building whatever you want to do. So in designing, before you will going to start design all component layout in any paper, you will going to understand, right, what I want to build, then how I want to build, then they will going to build. And the third one is transition. Transition means deliver the product at the end of the phase, right? So these are the four things. Usually it will break down into all kind of development. So let's talk about the inception phase in rational 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 unified process is very simple to the initiation phase in the project management. The purpose of inception phase is explore the project with the business stakeholder and decide if the project is worth of investing or not investing. The business case, the project charter, the project scope, project plan is the key deliverables. UML diagram, design, baseline, change management, produce comprehensive plan. So these are the phases of inception. No, 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 no. Project plan, estimated cost, schedule, risk analysis, and high level requirement. That is the phases for inception. In elaboration, the purpose of the elaboration phase is elicit the analysis, analyze the requirement, business need, stabilize the design of the system. The project start to take shape in the phase. Segregate high level requirement and use cases into detail. So whatever you do the detailing in the project, that is a part of the process for each phase, right? For each phase means, for the project planning, project designing, and implementation, testing, development, everything. So in each of the phase, you will going to elaborate as well, right? Wherever you are doing, you need to think about it. Requirement baseline, UML diagram, design baseline. Because based on UML diagram, they can design a system. Otherwise, they cannot design a system. Change management, how they will going to, if the change request will come, how it will going to handle. Produce comprehensive plan for the next phase, right? So it has the comprehensive plan for the next phase. Then the third one is construction. The construction phase where you actually build something. So it also deliverables is system coding, produce the first external release, test plan, test cases, iteration plan, detail, next iteration, transition strategy, everything. So that will be the deliverables for construction. The transition phase is a simple phase where the system product develop is put on the hand of the client and stakeholder formally uh, acceptance is acquired. So you will going to represent a demo in front of stakeholders, transfer the system from development to the production environment, making the system available to understand end user, perform UAT testing, everything. Before UAT, it will not going to release to users. That is the thing. Beta testing, you will do alpha testing, beta testing, and then release the product, right? So beta testing will be, where some user you will going to provide your product to some user for testing out. Product delivery, project documentation, training of the users. In some cases, training is necessary. You will going to provide, right? So rational unified planning also has engineering discipline as well, business modeling workflow, business requirement workflow, analysis and design workflow, implementation workflow, test workflow, deployment workflow. So these are the phases. Just like in our model, sorry, in our model over here, where is it? In initialization, business requirement, design. So over here in rational unified planning, we have business modeling workflow, requirement workflow, analysis and design workflow, implementation workflow. So implementation where you will going to start implementing, start coding, testing workflow, and deployment workflow. Rational unified planning also support supporting following discipline. Project management is managing, executing and controlling the project throughout the project phases. Make sure it needs to define goals in the project charter. Configuration and change the management. Configuration management is the managing the different version of the document created through the project. Environment. The purpose of the environment workflow is provide the organization with the tool, template, guidelines, processes needed to support the team. It is basically a step-by-step process of describe how to implement a project in organization. So these are the supporting disciplines: project management, configuration, change management, and environment. So next is spiral methodology. Basically, it will going to start talking about going in a circle and talk about the Scrum methodology. Right? So we will going to discuss this thing probably on